All right, let's dive into something that might just flip your understanding of the human mind completely on its head. We're exploring the work of Dr. Michael Lukens, whose book, The Physics of Emotioning, and yeah, that's a mouthful, presents a pretty radical idea. What if our conscious thoughts aren't actually in charge of our lives? It's a theory that challenges, our most basic assumptions about what really drives us. So let's get into it.
I mean, we've all heard it a million times, right? You can think your way to a better life. Just use willpower, control your feelings, control your actions. It's a really powerful and frankly appealing idea. But what if it's just a widely shared illusion?
Well, Dr. Lukens argues that this whole idea of thought control is basically a grand illusion. He suggests that our common sense belief that we are in the driver's seat is a deeply entrenched myth, and that the real engine of our behavior, well, it operates on a completely different level.
So, let's start by tackling this core idea head-on. The illusion that our conscious, thinking mind is the pilot of our lives.
We're so used to thinking of the mind as a computer. It takes in objective data from the outside world and processes it. But Dr. Lukens proposes a completely different model, the mind as a universe. And in this view, the mind doesn't just process reality, it actively creates its own meaningful reality. It's a closed system. And this leads to this really wild concept of informational closure. Think of it this way. Your nervous system isn't some sponge just passively soaking up the world. It's more like a guitar string. Now, the outside world can pluck it, but the note it produces, the meaning it creates, that comes from the string itself, from its own unique structure and tension.
And here's the crucial point. An object or an event doesn't tell you what it is. You tell it what it is. You are the definer of its itness. This means each of us is living in our own completely unique, self-created world of meaning, which, when you think about it, makes sharing an identical experience totally impossible.
Okay, so if our thoughts aren't the force behind our actions, what is? Well, Dr. Lukens introduces us to the real driver, a force he calls emotioning. And this is the central question, isn't it? If your thinking self, that inner voice you identify with, the one you call you, if that doesn't have any actual power to make things happen, what is the engine that actually moves you to get out of bed, to make a decision, to change your life?
The answer is emotioning. And it's so important to get this. This is not just another word for feelings or emotions. Emotioning is the entire continuous process, literally from birth to death, where meaning gets created and then translated directly into action. It is the fundamental force that shapes our will and our intentions.
This emotioning circuit here shows you how it works. It's a constant, non-stop loop. We perceive the world, we create meaning from it, and that meaning flows directly into action. Our conscious thoughts are just one small passenger on this massive biological superhighway that is always running.
So here's the kicker. That inner commentator you think of as yourself, it's more like a sportscaster up in the press box, reporting on the game after the play has already happened. It explains and justifies what your system, what your will has already set in motion. It's a fantastic storyteller, but it is not the pilot. So if we're driven by this powerful force of emotioning, what's its default program? Well, according to Dr. Lukens, it's something that, more often than not, leads us straight into cycles of anxiety and self-deception. This default program is the hedonic principle. It's our basic, almost animalistic drive to seek pleasure and avoid pain at all costs. This simple impulse is the root of our obsession with control, and, as we're about to see, it's a trap.
And here's how that trap works. We have our authentic experience, what's really, truly happening inside of us. But to avoid pain, we put up a defense boundary. Those X markings you see there, they represent where we lie to ourselves, where we deny our real anger or our sadness just to avoid the discomfort.
And what's the consequence? That inner commentator, our storyteller, becomes a spin doctor for the system. It creates a false narrative just to maintain short-term comfort. And in doing so, it trades away long-term growth and integrity. It generates what Dr. Lukens calls the spin of hypocrisy and dissociation.
But if this default setting is a trap, are we just stuck? Is there another way? Well, the theory offers a pretty profound alternative, a path toward a much higher purpose.
And this really gets to the heart of it all. If our biological default just leads to us lying to ourselves and stunting our own growth, what are we supposed to do instead? What could possibly override such a powerful, primitive program?
The answer, sitting right at the heart of Dr. Lukens' theory, is committed benevolent interest, or CBI. This is his theory-driven definition of pure love. And this is so crucial. It is not a feeling. It's a willed commitment to a purpose greater than your own comfort. It's a commitment to improving the shared experience of life, which he believes is the key to how human beings heal and evolve.
As Dr. Lukens puts it, our ultimate potential is to be improving machines. Our love, our CBI, is the very force that allows us to heal, to evolve, and to contribute to the well-being of the whole.
So what does it mean to put all this together? It means shifting from a life of control to a life of contribution, a life of living from your systemic truth. So let's just recap the huge shift in thinking here. Your mind isn't a computer, it's a universe creator. Your actions aren't driven by your thoughts, but by the force of emotioning. That default urge to chase pleasure and run from pain, it's a trap of self-deception. And the path to a more authentic life lies in choosing a higher purpose through committed, benevolent interest.
This theory suggests that all the energy we spend trying to control our inner world is, well, it's misplaced. Which leaves us with a final, pretty provocative question. What could you create? What would become possible for you and for the world if all that energy were redirected toward a commitment to serve?